Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 26 series, Rescue the Rockies. And apologies that it's been a few days since you heard from me, but appreciate your patience and appreciate all of the feedback on our options for this upcoming off season that have already been shared with me. I had to travel for work towards the end of this past week, so that's why I was offline a bit. But we will start off the off season and focus in this episode on evaluating our performance from 2029 and start putting a plan together for this 2029 to 2030 off season that begins today. 90-72 record for our Rockies was 2 games below Pythagorean expectations, made the playoffs for the 4th straight year, and for the first time in those 4 seasons, we actually won a playoff series, although we were still bounced in the National League Division Series by the Milwaukee Brewers, who had the best record in baseball this year and went on to win the National League pennant. Pretty solid season, all things considered, though. 90 wins, and outside of that really poor month of June, we had a winning record every month of the season, and outside of June and July, we were actually pretty good in every month of the season. Overall, when all was said and done, the offense, as you might expect from a team playing half of its games in Coors Field, was very strong. Second in the National League in runs allowed and in the top handful of all of the major offensive categories, except for walks, where we were a middle of the pack 8th. First in the league in stolen bases, thanks primarily to Chandler Simpson and Brenton Doyle. And third in the NL in base running. Pretty average team in terms of defensive efficiency, well above average in terms of our zone rating, and tied for 5th overall in runs allowed. Again, playing half of our games in Coors, I think we'll take that. We were in the top half in most pitching categories, the 2 exceptions, home runs allowed, where we were 12th, and walks allowed, where we were 11th. But our pitching staff definitely doesn't look incredible on paper, but I do think that having Drew Romo as our catcher, Ezekiel Tovar as our shortstop, and Brenton Doyle as our center fielder for these past several seasons has been a big benefit for us. Unfortunately, as we'll be talking about shortly, at least one of those players is very unlikely to be with us again next year, which could impact not just our offense, but potentially also our pitching staff if we're losing an important defensive star. And we'll start off our individual player review with our pitching staff. Lefty Jesus Luzardo is our ace. 17-6 this year with an ERA just under 4, put up a WAR of close to 4. So Luzardo, who we signed after the 2026 season, has now pitched 3 years with us. He's improved his WAR each season. Signed for next year to $14 million and then some team options at $12 million a year. Though he's getting up there a little bit, 32 years of age, he's been very effective for us in Colorado and expect him to remain an important part of our rotation next year. Pablo Lopez, we signed him before the 2028 season. He just completed his 2nd season in Colorado, 14-10 with a 4.36 earned run average, struck out 196 batters, and put up a solid 3.1 WAR for us. He is set to make $20 million next year. There is no interest at all in anyone picking up that contract, so it appears likely that we'll be stuck, as it were, with him for another year. You may remember when we signed him to that original 5-year contract, we did put in backloaded team options for the 4th and 5th potential seasons of that contract, or really a backloaded team option for the 4th season, which would be presumably when we opt out. hard to imagine that we won't take advantage of getting out of this contract next offseason. But given that right now nobody in baseball will offer us anything for Mr. Lopez, he'll probably be back with us next year. Right-hander Bobby Miller, 5-5 with a 3.82 ERA, put up a 1.6 WAR for us. He's been an effective 4 or 5 inning pitcher for us over the past couple of years. That's all that he is, but he's got ground ball tendencies, still throws 100 miles an hour, and signed to pretty reasonable numbers for these next few seasons. Very cost-effective starter, and if things go really well with the rotation, could certainly move him into a middle or long relief spot. Isaiah Shader, the top pitching prospect in our organization, former 6th-round pick from our first draft in 2025, has developed into the number 44 prospect in baseball, made his debut earlier this year, ended up with a 7-6 record and a 3.12 earned run average, put up a 2.3 WAR for us. Would expect him to be an important member of the rotation for the next several seasons. And Braden Nett had some injury issues this year, ended up going 8-3 with a 4.29 earned run average, a 2.2 WAR for him. So when we look at the starting rotation, unless somehow we're able to get out of Lopez's contract, which again I think is incredibly unlikely unless we want to just retain a huge chunk of it. And since it's essentially a 1-year contract at this point, I don't think it makes a lot of sense for us to retain, say, 90% of that contract and get nothing from him, since he was a over 3 WAR player this past year. So odds are that the rotation is going to look pretty similar next year to the way it finished up this season. The lefty Wellington Herrera became our closer this year, had 30 saves for us, the ERA 3.39, 99 strikeouts in 82 1/3 innings pitched, only allowed 5 homers, did walk far too many people with 48 walks, so the whip of 1.30 was a bit higher than ideal for a closer, but he still put up a WAR of close to 2 for us. Would expect the lefty to be back with us next year. Gregory Soto, another lefty, 7-5 record with a 2.56 earned run average and almost 10 strikeouts per 9 inning out of the bullpen for us. We have already exercised his team option for $2.5 million for next year, so Mr. Soto will almost certainly be back as a lefty for us. Gregory Santos, the righty, a little more of a decision here. Set to make $4.5 million next year. He's now on the wrong side of 30. Led the National League in holds for a 3rd consecutive season with us. He's done it every year that he's been a full-time player with us. But he was actually slightly below replacement level for us, despite a fine 3.42 earned run average. Did give up 10 home runs and 38 walks and 76 1/3 innings pitched. So it's conceivable that he could be back with us next year, but if there's any modest trade value that he has, might make sense to get that $4.5 million contract off the books. Luke Little, arbitration eligible player, set to be making about $3.8 million this offseason. As a guy we traded for middle of this year. He put up a 3.91 ERA in 23 innings pitched for us, but his stuff and his movement are outstanding. The control likely will remain an issue, but think that he's going to be a very important left-handed arm out of our bullpen. Think that the excellent ability he has keeping the ball in the park and his extreme ground ball tendencies will play very well in cores as he gets more comfortable being a member of our Rockies. Right-hander Jaden Hill split the year between AAA Albuquerque and the majors, had a 2.52 earned run average in 25 innings pitched in the majors, but he was slightly below replacement level. He's a almost 30-year-old who our scout claims has a lot of untapped potential. Would be very surprised if he reaches that at this point. Set to make about $1.5 million next year. So question whether or not we will be bringing Jaden Hill back, because the $1.5 million is, for a replacement level player, probably not what we want to be paying. Does have an option year left though, and the contract isn't crazy. Ryan Walker, similar to Gregory Santos, now that he's no longer our closer, could be someone we try to move on from. Set to make $6.5 million each of these next couple seasons. Not really sure how much trade interest there will be in him. Had an ERA of 3.92 in 57 1/3 innings pitched out of the bullpen this year. Did save 15 games before we demoted him. He actually pitched much more effectively once he was not our closer. WAR of close to 1. But with the money he's making and the fact he's going to be 34 years old before next season begins, fly ball pitcher might not be ideal as his skills continue to deteriorate. Lefty Drew Summers will likely be back with us, arbitration eligible, going to be making 1.8-ish million next year, an ERA of 4 over 40 1/3 innings. Walked 29 batters in those 40 1/3 innings this year. You look at his control, and it's a little bit surprising that he walked so many. He was below replacement level, but as we think about this potential bullpen with Herrera, Soto, Little, and potentially Summers, really like the 4 lefty relievers that we could have in the bullpen next year, so may end up bringing Summers back as well as those other 3. Cole Klecker, right-hander, an 11th round pick out of 2025, made his major league debut at the end of the year, 3.38 ERA over 8 innings pitched in 3 outings out of the bullpen. Looks like he could be a useful arm for us as a potential spot starter or long reliever, and he's cheap, so Klecker certainly in the mix for a role next year. And then a couple of guys that we signed as free agents because they were popular, the last couple pitchers we'll talk about. Righty Jordan Hicks had an ERA of close to 5 in 130 1/3 innings. He was a starter for the first half of the year for us, and then we moved him into the bullpen. Did end up putting up a 1.7 WAR, set to hit free agency. Looking for $4.4 million a year over 3 years, and wants a promised spot in the starting rotation. As much as we appreciate his popularity, I don't know, given his skill set, that it makes a lot of sense to bring him back. Mention that we're very heavy on lefties. The lefty Joe Rock, also very popular. Free agent signing who put up an ERA of over 5 in just 80 innings pitched for us this year. Allowed a ridiculous 19 home runs in those 80 innings pitched. Fly ball pitcher, not great at keeping the ball in the park and pitching in cores. Not surprisingly, the home runs were there, so he was almost a win below replacement. You may remember we had a $10 million team option on him that we've already declined. So he is not even salary arbitration eligible yet based on his service time. So he is a player who at this point is set to make $1.5 million next year, the same amount that he made this past season. Given that he is so popular, it's not inconceivable that we decide to keep Rock around rather than letting him go. He is out of option years, which makes it a little tricky. Going to be an interesting decision. Honestly, the only reason that Hicks and Rock are on the roster, period, is because we signed them because they were popular last year. But with those ERAs of around 5 for both of them, you can see that as far as their major league performance last year, they were the 2 most suspect members of our pitching staff. And before we turn to our healthy position players, we'll turn to, unfortunately, the unhealthy player among our position players who happens to be our best overall player. Ezekiel Tovar had another monster year for us this year before that torn labrum in early September ended his season. 308 batting average, 33 homers, and 101 ribbies. Also stole 18 bases in 21 attempts, put up a 148 WRC plus, and I believe it's a career best 7 WAR from him. He has been outstanding for us. 5.6, 6, 5.7, and 7.0 WARs over the 4 years, the 4 full seasons since we took over this team. 1.5 WAR in 25 the season that we took over about 2 months into the year when we started this series. Tovar still signed to that extension that the Rockies had signed him to, set to make $16 million next year, and then a team option for $23 million in 2031. So he's certainly getting expensive, but if he keeps putting up 5.5 to 7 WAR seasons, certainly not too expensive for that contract. Hopefully the recovery from the torn labrum will go over the next few months. Should be just about ready for the start of spring training, and expect that he will be back as a captain personality, excellent defensive player, good on the base paths, and a pretty darn good hitter as well for our Colorado Rockies in 2030. Taking a look at the rest of our position players, Caleb Lomavita is a guy we traded for a couple of off seasons ago. Made his major league debut with us 0 for 2 as a September call-up, so he certainly didn't get a lot of playing time. Competent defensive catcher. The big question is whether he's really a major league hitter. At almost 27 years old, I don't think he is, but he may end up being our backup catcher next year to Drew Romo. Romo, another excellent season, 119 WRC plus and a 6.1 WAR. He's been an outstanding defensive catcher throughout this playthrough. He's won back-to-back Gold Gloves at this point, was an all-star a season ago, but this year here was probably his best. 281 average, 16 homers, 29 doubles, even 9 for 9 stealing bases. We signed him to an extension in the early stages of this playthrough, starting to make a little bit more money now, but given how good he is defensively and how respectable to good he has been at times with his bat, he's a very important player for us, and we think his great defense, along with the outstanding defense we get at short from Tovar and at center field from Brenton Doyle, has been a big asset to our pitching staff over these past few seasons. Basically gave Charlie Condon the opportunity to play most days this year. At 26 years old, he still has untapped potential. Question whether he'll really fulfill it or not. Hit 228 this year, did have 22 home runs and 71 ribbies and 473 at-bats. But he struck out 171 times. It all added up to an 88 WRC plus. He was barely above replacement level. Probably, given our financial limitations, is going to be our opening day first baseman next year. We'll probably try to put him through the development lab one last time this offseason to see if maybe we can find some magic, but not convinced he's ever going to be a real big-time player for us. Austin Wells had an outstanding season for us this year. We picked him up in a trade with the Yankees that first offseason. He is completed now his 4th year in Colorado, and the best year of his career, 299 average, 36 homers, 96 ribbies, put up an outstanding 150 WRC plus and a 4.5 WAR. Unfortunately, he is now finally headed to free agency, looking for $25 million a year over 6 years, since we have only about $670,000 to spend. and that's with scouting and player development at or lower than where they were a year ago. I think it's very unlikely that we can bring Mr. Wells back next year. Unfortunately, he's also been our backup catcher the last few years to Romo, which is why Loma Vida could be in the mix to be our backup catcher next year. Ozzie Albies signed him to a minor league deal. He hit 246 in 61 major league at-bats for us this year. Unlikely that he will be back next season. Adail Amador had the best year of his career, 272 average, 24 doubles, 14 homers, stole 20 bases. All in all, put up a 120 WRC plus and a 3.2 WAR. Played all over the field for us, primarily at third base, but also started games at short, second, and first base for us this year. The contract in his arbitration year is starting to get a bit more expensive at $6 million, but think he's going to be an important infielder for us again next year. Jared Cerna, 237 average in 409 at-bats. He's someone whose performance offensively continues to deteriorate. Just a 73 WRC plus this year. He was below replacement level. Cerna set to make $4 million next year. I'd say that there's definitely no guarantee that he'll be back with us at that price. If there's interest in Mr. Cerna in the trade market, we could definitely consider moving on from him. Because feel like the infield, although we may have some problems with the depth, if Condon is penciled in at first, Amador penciled in at third, Ezequiel Tovar written in blood at shortstop, and then Marcelo Meyer likely to be our second baseman, we may be able to go with some less expensive utility infielders than Cerna next year. Meyer, the left-handed hitting second baseman, did end up playing shortstop for us late in the season after the injury to Mr. Tovar. Meyer, 266 average, was a slightly above average offensive player this year. 41 doubles, 9 triples, 15 stolen bases, and a 3.3 WAR on the season. Mentioned he was primarily our second baseman, but he did start 14 games at short, most of which happened after Tovar went down with that injury. We'll turn our attention now to our outfielders, and although the potential departure of Wells is certainly going to hurt our offense, and the potential departure of Cerna not ideal as well, the outfield is where we really could see some very significant turnover this upcoming offseason. Toshimi Masuda, the Japanese export, who we signed to a minor league deal couple of seasons ago, spent all of this year in the majors with us. Positively, he had 8 home runs in 118 at-bats. Negatively, he struck out 56 times in those 118 at-bats, batted just 186 with an 80 WRC plus, and he was below replacement level. He still has ratings that indicate, particularly against left-handed pitching, he's got a excellent chance of hitting the ball out of the ballpark. Pretty good power against righties as well, but he struggles to make contact, strikes out too much, and is not good defensively. In a perfect world, we'd love it if Masuda was not on our roster next year, but given that we're going to be losing possibly several other outfielders, I can't rule out that he could be back with us. One who will likely be using is Elliot Ramos. Picked him up in a trade with Cleveland before the trade deadline. He was incredibly productive for us as a right-handed hitter, platooning and playing against left-handed pitching primarily. Hit .328 with 5 homers and 16 ribbies in 122 at-bats. Put up a 146 WRC plus for us and a 1.1 WAR. Unfortunately, he's looking for $19 million a year over 4 years. He's on the wrong side of 30 now, and as good as he was for us, for a guy that in a perfect world is a platoon player, no way we can justify that money. Chandler Simpson's going to be a very interesting decision. Led the National League in steals for a third straight year, led the league that he played in steals for a fourth straight year this year. 83 stolen bases and 88 attempts. The batting average did fall to 242, the on-base percentage just below 300, and the OPS has descended from 723 to 658 to 591 over his 3 years in Colorado. 1.1 WAR this year. Still has the outstanding speed and good contact. The gap power poor, the home run power non-existent, and the eye below average. Is a good defensive left fielder and a respectable defensive center fielder. So that's the argument to bring him back, because we'll likely be losing our starting center fielder Brenton Doyle. But with Simpson set to make about $4.5 million next year, it's at least a question whether we want to have him back or not. We'd feel better about potentially moving on from the likes of Simpson, Ramos, and Masuda if Dean West had been more productive when he came up, but he hit just a $179 in 56 at-bats for us. He is a guy with good speed, though, and excellent range in the outfield, with the potential that we could be moving on from the left fielder Simpson, and we're almost certainly moving on from our center fielder Brenton Doyle. Would expect Dean West to be on the roster in some role next year. It very well could be as our starting center fielder, which doesn't make me feel real good, considering that he hit a $179 in his major league debut, and at the age of 25, unlikely to get much better. Brenton Doyle, the outstanding defensive center fielder, won 4 consecutive Gold Gloves from 23 to 26. 240 batting average this year, but was a perfect 39 for 39 stealing bases. Also had 16 doubles, 7 triples, and 13 homers in just over 500 at-bats. Still only added up to a 78 WRC plus, but a 3 WAR on the season as his glove remains outstanding. 12.6 zone rating, 1.056 defensive efficiency in center field. The issue with Mr. Doyle is he's looking for $16 million a year for 6 years. Just don't see a practical way where we can pay that money. So another outfielder who could be gone next season. Cole Carrig could be back as a utility guy for us, set to make $2.8 million, but particularly if we move on from Jared Cerna, Carrig gives us a guy with good speed who is a pretty versatile defensive player and also a pretty respectable defensive player at most positions. Hit just 202 this year in 178 at-bats, was below replacement level. The bat is a very borderline major league bat, but he's a switch hitter. He's cheaper than Cerna, and he's actually a little more versatile and probably a little better defensively than Cerna. So I think that Carrig could be a super utility guy for us again next year. He's also a fan favorite, so moving on from him, not ideal given that the fans are already not very pleased with us. Gus Nieves, who was the Rookie of the Year and the MVP a year ago after we signed him out of Cuba, had a disappointing sophomore season. 258 average, 34 homers, 97 ribbies, 111 WRC plus, so he was certainly an above-average offensive player, but he was not the best offensive player in the National League, which he was in his first year in the majors. Not the greatest influence in the clubhouse, and he was barely above replacement level this year because he doesn't bring much to the table defensively. In right field, he was well below average in terms of both his zone rating and his defensive efficiency. Set to make $31 million a year for the next 5 years. He's a guy who, if we really wanted to get aggressive in terms of trying to churn this roster, probably still at the age of 28, has some value on the trade market despite that big contract. I don't think we're going to get a big time player in return for him, but it is a contract that we could get off the books. If we think about the fact that we've got no money to spend right now, and we would need almost $30 million additional to be able to max out our scouting and player development budgets. Moving on from Nieves is the simplest path to opening up a bunch of financial flexibility. But again, losing Austin Wells, who probably was our second best offensive player this year behind Mr. Tovar, losing Brenton Doyle, who put up a 3 WAR and is an outstanding defensive center fielder, and then potentially pulling Nieves out of the lineup as well puts us in a position where you just kind of wonder how we're going to be scoring runs next year. Mentioned that there's no demand for Lopez's contract at this point. The other big levers we could try to press to save money would be Ezequiel Tovar, Jesus Luzardo, and Drew Romo. Tovar's the best player on our team. Romo is arguably the second best player on our team with his outstanding defense. That's a big asset to the pitching staff. And although Luzardo is probably more tradable than Lopez, being cheaper, a little better, and a little bit younger, I don't know that we really want to take that contract off the books. So I'm going to have some very interesting decisions to make with this team. There are actually a couple of interesting players on the waiver wire. Enixon Sanchez of the Yankees, recovering from a torn flexor tendon in his elbow. He barely touches 90 on the radar gun and is a fly ball pitcher who we think is going to be adequate at best keeping the ball in the park. So I don't know that we're going to put in a claim on him, but Kyson Witherspoon, a 25-year-old reliever, former first-round pick in the Braves organization, great personality, another fly ball pitcher, which, again, with the ability to keep the ball in the park that looks only average-ish is not necessarily ideal for Coors. But he's got good stamina, he's got a great personality, potential 5-pitch arsenal. Seems like a guy who could be a pretty cheap reliever for us for the next few years. I don't really understand how he has 124 days of major league service, given that he's pitched above A ball only 23 1/3 innings in his career and has never actually pitched in his majors. He did have a torn triceps last year, so I guess maybe they put him on the major league roster in the 15-day injured list or something, but that service time doesn't make sense to me. But regardless, I think that Witherspoon is an interesting guy to at least take a flyer on. So we're going to go ahead and claim him. Don't know that we'll get him. I'll take a look at the rest of the guys on the waiver wire as well. Not typically something that we're all that active with, but did definitely think he was an interesting guy to potentially try to bring in, particularly since we could be losing a few pitchers this offseason, as I talked about earlier. And there is one other pitcher that we're going to put a claim on. That's Wyatt Crowell of the Dodgers. Anytime we can try to get the scraps left from the Dodgers that they don't want in the organization can probably be something that helps us. 28-year-old, probably a bit of fool's gold, says that he's got a lot of untapped potential, but again, as a 28-year-old, unlikely that he'll ultimately realize it. Did have a nice year in AAA this past season, 3.42 ERA with a 13-4 record in 137 innings pitched. Certainly don't think it's a guarantee that'll make our roster. And actually, it looks like he's already been claimed by San Francisco. So I think if we try to claim him, it's just going to tell us that San Francisco is lower rated than we are. Yeah, so we're not going to get him. But good to see another team in the National League West benefiting from the Dodgers just being so loaded that they decide to release some pretty decent players. And before we finish off this episode, we'll take a look at some of the top prospects in our organization and also discuss our initial thoughts on the development lab. Next time around, we'll get a little bit deeper into some of the arbitration decisions we've got ahead of us and start exploring the trade market. And we'll also take a look at some of the top prospects from other organizations next time around. But here, our minor league system ranks 10th out of 30 overall. 4 top 100 prospects, which is good. But we've got 12 top 200 prospects. So those second-tier prospects were actually pretty strong right now. Top prospect in our organization is the number 12 prospect in baseball, Kevin Roberts Jr. He was the 5th overall pick in 2026 as a high schooler, and he is a pick that seems to be working out pretty well for us at this point. Only 21 years old, split this past season between High A Spokane, where he hit .292 in 329 at-bats with 19 homers and 73 ribbies. We promoted him towards the end of the year to Double A Hartford, where he handled the Eastern League well. 295 average, 8 homers and 24 ribbies and 146 at-bats. So a combined 6.2 WAR between the two levels. Mentioned that with the potential likely departure of Doyle and the possibility that we'll be having some other departures in the outfield, it's a position where we're going to be needing some help. I don't think Roberts is ready to help us out of spring training, but with that potential bat and the potential glove that he has, he could be a good center fielder or an outstanding corner outfielder for us in the not too distant future. Jordan Contreras, our IAFA signing from less than 2 years ago, is the number 22 prospect in baseball. Split this year between our 2 rookie league teams. In the Arizona Complex League, he hit .370 and 81 at-bats. And then he went back to the DSL where he hit .274 and 124 at-bats. Stole 32 bases across those 2 levels with a combined 2.4 WAR. Still think that with his outstanding speed and potential for really good contact and really good gap power, that still hopeful that he ultimately becomes the next Deshaun Seifu, who those of you who watched our Buffalo Wings series, a couple versions of OOTP ago, probably remember. Shortstop Matt Waters was our first-round pick this year. He's listed as the number 52 prospect in baseball, although his ceiling, according to our scout, is already much lower than when we picked him. Still think he's going to have a potentially useful bat with a potentially decent glove, actually a more than decent glove if things work out. He'll be making his professional debut for us next season. Trent Clausen, we picked 24th overall in 2027. He's another outfielder who's not too far away. If we have a lot of departures in the outfield, which as we talked about is certainly possible, it is conceivable that Clausen could be a left fielder for us next year. Split the year between Double A Hartford, where he was great, hitting .343 and 70 at-bats, and then Triple A Albuquerque, where he was kind of average, .270 average and 337 at-bats. Did have 16 doubles, 5 triples, and 13 homers, but his offensive production was pretty average for a Triple A player. Like the captain personality, like the speed, think the gap power will play very well in cores when all is said and done. The issue right now, though, is that the right-hander just doesn't really look ready to handle right-handed major league pitching. Hopefully he'll have a good offseason, and at 24 years old, it would be great if he can make a case to make the jump to the majors at the start of next season. Ryan Stone, another former first-round pick, picked him 32nd overall out of UVA a year and a half ago. Spent the start of the year in high A ball where he hit 304 and 158 at-bats. And then we promoted him to Double A Hartford where he hit 308 and 299 at-bats. Really good personality, respectable glove, although not a great arm, respectable speed. Don't think he's ever going to be a dynamic offensive player, but if he does end up with plus contact and plus gap power, think that he could be a pretty useful left-handed hitter for us in cores. Could definitely see a scenario next year where he ends up platooning in left field with the likes of Clausen. Stone looks like he's close to being able to handle right-handed pitching. So you could certainly make an argument, particularly if we do end up moving on from both Simpson and Doyle, that maybe you think about making the jump from Double A to the majors with Stone, who will be turning 24 next year. I think it's hard for me to justify it with Clausen just because if we had him in the majors, I think we're going to want him to be in everyday action, and I just don't think he's ready to handle right-handed major league pitching at this point. Francisco Santos, IAFA signing from that first IAFA period in 2026. Spent time in both the ACL and the DSL this year. 310 average in the ACL, 282 in the DSL. And he will, at 20 years old, with 3 years of professional experience at rookie ball at this point, certainly be in A ball next year and hopefully make it up to high A before the end of the season. Doug Bartholo, first baseman who was a fifth-round pick in 2027, hit 305 in 187 at-bats in rookie ball. Another guy who looks ready to make the jump to A ball. Not a great defensive player. We've been experimenting with him at first base, where he's also not great defensively, similar to how he is in the outfield. Still think the contact and gap power combination with him is interesting. Not a ton of home run power, though. Leo Martinez, a scouting discovery from about 2.5 years ago, is a guy who spent the year in rookie ball, 1-3 record with a 5.26 ERA. He's going to be turning 20 before next season, and certainly will be making the jump to A ball. Like the extreme ground ball tendencies, the question with him is really his stuff. We think the movement is going to be really good. We think the control has a high ceiling. The question is whether the stuff is actually going to translate as a major leaguer. But certainly a guy who's got some potential. Carlos Renzullo, guy who hit 316 for us in AAA after a 344 average in AA. 23-year-old, another guy with good contact, average-ish gap power. The issue is that the home run power is below average and the eye is pretty awful. Does have some speed, and he's a guy who is a competent defensive infielder who can play multiple positions, and he's also a more than competent defensive outfielder. Could certainly see Renzullo competing to be a utility guy for us next year, particularly if we move on from Jared Cerna and some of the outfielders. Ted Miller, second-round pick from 2027. Split the year between rookie ball, where he hit 342, and then we promoted him to A ball, where he hit 341. So pretty productive offensively. Not a great defensive player, but still think that the bat could be useful, like the durability. The left-handed hitting corner outfielder, first base, DH type. Not going to be someone who's going to be helping us next year, most likely, but probably not too far away if he continues to develop. Oliver Cerati, minor league free agent signing of ours in 2026, is a guy who's developed into a decent prospect, 10-3 with a 3.30 ERA in the Eastern League. Looks like a borderline major league starter. Don't think that the fly ball tendencies and the inability to keep the ball in the park is going to translate particularly well to Coors. But if he's got a little bit of trade value as the 182nd ranked prospect in baseball, could be someone that we look to move on from this offseason if there's a interesting deal out there. And last but not least, our 6th round pick from this past draft, Matt Kazabowski, is a top 200 prospect. Very dependent on that changeup developing to give him an arsenal that could make him a major league pitcher. But if that changeup does develop, looks like he could be a respectable major league starter. And before we finish off the episode, I just want to share what our plans for the development lab are. Obviously, we're not going to be moving forward yet, so we still can change this, but in the 8 slots that we're going to play with, Isaiah Shader, talked about him earlier, top pitching prospect in our organization. He's got a changeup that we think could be pretty good. The question was whether to work on his control or the change, and we decided that it makes sense to work on secondary pitch improvement, hopefully get that changeup to another level. We're going to spend one final development lab trip with Charlie Condon. Going to work on him trying to make better contact. He'll be 27 years old very early next season. We'll see if we can get some luck in the development lab with him. Top prospect in the organization, Kevin Roberts Jr., going to work on his plate discipline to try to jumpstart his ability to hopefully get on base at the major league level. Justin Gibson, a guy that we haven't talked about yet, 4th round pick from 2028 out of Gonzaga. He had a nice year for us, a 3.48 ERA in A ball, promoted him to high A where he put up a 2.31 ERA and then an ERA of less than 1 in 7 appearances in Double A Hartford. Throws 100 miles an hour, outstanding fastball with a change that's major league quality and could also be great. The 22-year-old going to work on improving his pitch movement and see if we can turn him into a potentially valuable reliever for us. Trent Clausen and Ryan Stone, we talked about the 2 former first-round picks who aren't too far off from the majors. Both of them are going to be working on their gap power, which is for each of them one of their better traits. Ted Miller, talked about him, think that he could be a bat helping us in the not-too-distant future. Miller going to be working on his plate discipline, and so is Jordan Contreras. So we're trying to go with some of the easier programs with some of the guys this year to try to jumpstart their development in these long 3 to 4 month programs that we're potentially just getting underway. Little bit of a youth movement here. Shader and Condon are the only 2 guys with major league experience that are in the development lab for us, and the rest of them are some of the top prospects in our organization that we're hoping will be able to help us in the not-too-distant future, because with the financial situation that we're in right now and with fan interest that is still lagging, not anticipating a lot of improvements to the team from the free agent market this offseason, you never know what there's going to be in the trade market, but at the trade settings we're playing with, it's going to be few and far between to find a trade that's really impactful and interesting. So I think that we need to just continue investing in some of those higher end prospects in our organization and hope that ultimately we can have some success with them to give us the help that we need and the very cheap and cost effective help that would be extremely useful for us to have on this major league roster. Honestly, when I started signing some of these contracts a few years ago, notably Lopez, also Luzardo, to a lesser extent Nieves, since that was only 2 years ago, thought that we might be in a better position where we weren't still in the bottom quartile in terms of our budget. But unfortunately, the budget remains 25th, and given that some of the contracts we've signed are fairly expensive, and we've got arbitration eligible players who get more and more expensive, feel like we've boxed ourselves in a little bit with our options for this off season. Ultimately, going to really need to likely expand this budget if we want to have any sustained success at a higher level than just making the playoffs every year and usually getting bounced in the first round, which is unfortunately kind of where we are with these Rockies right now. So if you've got additional thoughts on what you might do this offseason, would love to hear them. Until our next episode, thanks so much for watching and hope you have a great day.